Hello, Martin Indyk from America. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tomorrow in Israel, we have our election, and we want to talk to you a bit about the time in 2013, 2014, when you were working with Netanyahu and trying to get to a peace agreement with Israel and the Palestinians. And we want to know exactly, in your eyes, what Netanyahu was planning to give the Palestinian Authority in able to get to this peace agreement.
Well, this is not a new story. I've talked about it a lot since 2014, and it's in my latest book on Henry Kissinger's diplomacy. I provide details about what happened in those negotiations. The last night of the negotiations in I think it was May 2014, Yitzhak Molho, the Prime Minister's lawyer and counselor, and Tzipi Livni, who was then in the government and head of the negotiations, she was also Minister of Justice, came to a meeting with Saab Erekat and Majid Faraj, the Palestinian negotiators at the time, representing Abu Mazen and the PLO. I was present in the room with my deputy, Frank Lowenstein, as the American mediators. And Yitzhak came with a far-reaching offer that surprised everybody in the room except Tzipi Livni, who knew about it, which was that the Prime Minister was prepared to give the Palestinians thousands of dunams in Area C. This was not just a free gesture. This was designed to try to extend the negotiation time that was about to expire. We had been wrapped up around the axle of settlements which had plagued the negotiations, and the Palestinians were insisting on a settlements freeze, and Netanyahu was not prepared to do that. So instead, he had his negotiating team, led by Molho, offer these tens of thousands of dunams in Area C. Subsequently, it turned out that
actually moving them to be as part of Area A or Area B.
Correct, Area A or Area B. Most likely Area B, but it depended, because the idea was to give the Palestinians room to breathe in their cities and towns, which were hemmed in by Area C, that was under complete Israeli control.
And did the Palestinian side agree to this offer?
Well, the Palestinian side was very interested in this offer. They'd never been offered this kind of land. The first question they asked was, does this require permits? And Molho explained that no, it was in the power of the defense minister under the Oslo agreements to hand over areas of territory to change it from Area C to Area B. This would not.
So actually, Netanyahu's offer was not. He didn't want to take this to the cabinet or to the Knesset to prove it.
Correct. Molho also explained that it did not require cabinet approval. This was in the power of the defense minister to do under the Oslo agreements, because he was in effect command of the occupied territories. And so it could be done without a cabinet agreement. Whether politically it could be done without a cabinet agreement is different. But that's what was conveyed. Palestinians.
I'm trying to understand, because sometimes Netanyahu offered different offers to the Palestinians just to take some more time in negotiation and able to show the American side that the Palestinian always says no. So you think this offer was this kind of offer?
Well, it's hard to say, because as I'll explain, it didn't go anywhere. But it was certainly presented as a serious offer in the context of trying to find a way to extend the timeline for the negotiations.
That meeting, the both sides, the Israeli side and the Palestinian side, got to any agreement and able to progress this idea?
So the Palestinians were very interested in this. The one thing that Saab Erekat said to Molho at the time was, please consult us about where you will give us this territory, because we don't want our Palestinian land sharks to get involved in this. This could be very useful for the towns and cities, as I explained, to expand. And so therefore they wanted to have a say in where exactly the tens of thousands of dunams would be handed over. They went off, it was like 3 a.m. in the morning, they went off to consult with their leadership. And that's where we left it.
I'm trying to understand, because as I said, tomorrow we have the Israeli election, and Netanyahu is trying to threat the Israeli population that if Lapid will become the prime minister, he will establish a Palestinian state and will give the Palestinian Authority more power and more territories. So as in your book and what you're telling us now, it's the same thing that Netanyahu was planning to do almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, that is correct. Of course, the context was final status negotiations. There was still a hell of a lot that had to be agreed on. And this was for the purpose not of reaching an agreement, but of extending the time to negotiate an agreement. And it was designed as a way for Netanyahu to avoid what the Palestinians were demanding at the time, which was a settlements freeze.
So he agreed to give more territories in the sea areas to the Palestinian, but enabling Israeli territories, Israeli settlement to continue growing.
Well, that still had to be resolved, but essentially that was the trade that I believe he was looking for.
Now, today, when you hear Netanyahu talking about against the left-wing party, the Lapid and Gantz, and calling them left-wing and trying to establish a Palestinian state, how do you refer to it when you see him and know exactly what he was trying to do a few years ago?
Look, as you said, you're on the eve of an election. I don't have a vote, and it's not appropriate for me. Other Americans, some of them in high office, think it's appropriate to interfere in Israeli elections. I don't.
I'm not asking who you are going to vote for, but the Israeli population should know exactly who they're voting for. If Prime Minister then Netanyahu was aiming for a bigger Palestinian Authority territories, the Israeli population should know this.
Look, as I said, it's not a secret. I'm a historian, not a politician. In that context, at that time, Netanyahu had his lawyer, counsel Yitzhak Mocho, offer the Palestinians tens of thousands of dunams of Area C for their development in order to extend the negotiations on a final status, a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinian state aborting.
So can you help us remember exactly what happened at the end of the day, why the negotiation actually stopped in the end and didn't continue on?
Yes, it was another tragic story of ships passing in the night. Palestinians went home quite excited by this offer. It was, as I said, early in the morning. And the next morning, before they had a chance to brief Abu Mazen, the Palestinian leader, it was announced that he had agreed to a unity deal with Hamas, and that Hamas would join with the Palestinian Authority, and they would form a technocratic government of Palestinians who had agreed to the Oslo Accords. But this would be as a result of a Hamas Palestinian Authority agreement. And as a result of that,
Netanyahu had to withdraw from this offer.
As a result of that, Netanyahu called off the negotiations. And so that was the end. There haven't been any negotiations since. And that offer was on the table, but was never taken up because Abu Mazen decided to go in a different direction. As far as I understand it, he was never briefed before he made that decision to join with Hamas about the offer.
You think maybe they would have changed his decision?
I don't think so, because he was at that point he had been so humiliated by the settlement activity and Netanyahu's statements that I think he was fed up and didn't believe that anything could be achieved through the negotiations, which is why that he had been negotiating with Hamas to go a different way.
Okay. Martin Indyk, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.